Hi, how are we doing everybody, and welcome to Russell Heritage Golf. Today we're talking again about the transitional area coming in towards the downswing and how you're going to open up the hips coming in towards that downswing area. It's a really important thing, and this is where golfers tend to do things like slide, early hip extend, spin out. And to be honest with you, you mainly get this area wrong because of the backswing. And I've talked about that in much more detail, but again, you need to do two things in the backswing. You need to basically turn the pelvis, right? So if you like, you need to turn your hips. But whilst you're doing that, you want to restrict the amount of rotation on the upper part of this leg to create a resistance and create the correct activation in the hip area. If you haven't already done so already, then I'd suggest that you watch the wedge drill. The wedge is just like a little platform, like a sprinter in the block analogy, and it just kind of helps you find the correct sort of muscles to help you open up the hips. Then I talked about the pressure loading. Those are the two things. So basically you need to find a way in your golf swing to turn, restricting the amount of upper leg rotation as you turn your pelvis, but also you need to actively try and find a way when you turn to feel like you're putting pressure in towards the ground. And that's why if you go back over some of the exercises, even a little one like I've demonstrated there, placing my hands across my shoulders, keeping myself nice and centered, all of a sudden I can start to really feel like I'm putting pressure in towards the ground. Now, the reason why that is so important is because, like I mentioned last time, if you put pressure underneath that trail side, it basically means now I can move my lead hip back without this one firing forward. If you don't load that correctly, then this is going to basically have freedom to follow wherever that lead hip goes, and that's what causes a lot of problems. So then what happens to open up the hips? Well, we know, right, that basically there are areas around your hips that help you open up the pelvis. And by getting the backswing correct is what's going to activate the correct sort of muscles in the backswing position. What professional golfers do is that they use the ground really well. We know this because of all the force plate data and because of things like 4D biomechanics, and all the rest of the stuff has really helped us understand how professional golfers use the ground much better. And the benefit of this is that what we can now do is help golfers like yourselves improve how you use the ground as well. Now, I know a lot of people that commented on the wedge exercise how much it kind of revolutionized people's feelings. Well, today again we're going for the same sort of thing. Now, what should happen is that you should swing up to the top, and like I've said, you should feel like you're putting a lot of pressure underneath that trail side, and you should feel an activation up here if you've turned correctly. Because what happens as you start the transition is that, yes, you want to push more in towards the ground and underneath that trail side. See, as I start to initiate my downswing, I would swing up towards the top, and then I am going to consciously try and pull my lead hip back so it squares off. Last thing we want is to start moving this way or even some sort of slide, because then we're going to get stuck. But I need to keep pushing down in towards the floor, because otherwise you're just going to be very vulnerable of just spinning out. Now, the best way for you to get a feeling of this is at home, without your shoes on. Get yourself, like what I've done here in this example, like a swimming float. So I've cut a swimming float in half, and what that means now is that basically I can use the swimming float to push pressure in towards the floor. So you can see the way as I'm demonstrating here that I swing up towards the top. As I start to initiate my downswing, I don't just kind of move my weight really quickly over to my lead side. I'm still pushing pressure in towards that trail side, in towards the ground. This is the thing that I'm looking for you guys to do, is that what you need to understand is we're talking about movements that are happening extremely quickly. When you swing up towards the top, the weight will be in that trail side. It'll either be on the outside part of my right foot or on the out in towards my right heel. As I open up my hips, the weight isn't going to immediately move back in towards the left. The weight will stay in my right hand side as I start to transition, because it's the only way that I can open up my pelvis. And I think that's the thing that people need to start getting a stronger feeling for. So the idea is that you swing up towards the top, and if you get access, you push the swimming float down in towards the ground. As you transition and you pull the lead hip back, you should feel like you are still squashing the float down as you start to open the hips. It wouldn't be until later in the downswing, so the early part of the downswing, potentially, let's just say for a good rule of thumb at the moment, by the time you're at left arm horizontal, that the weight would then start to move back in towards that lead heel. That's the big thing you've got to get to understand. You need to open up your hips to stop things like sliding and early hip extending. But the thing that you need to do now is you need to understand not necessarily just how to picture it, but how to feel it. And the way that you're going to feel it is by, in my opinion, doing some exercises at home, no shoes on the carpet, put something nice and soft that you can squash in towards the ground, hence the swimming float. And I want you to squash it in towards the ground on the way back. And then as you start to open up the hips very slowly in that transitional area, you should still feel like you're retaining that squashing sensation in towards the float. Really important thing that you guys start understanding how to do this. You don't want to start shifting too quickly over here. Yes, as we keep talking on the channel, we'll talk about as and when the weight will shift in towards, back in towards that lead heel, but not immediately as you start that transitional move. Right, plenty of work for you guys to go and do again. Now you've got to go back down the hardware store and get yourself some sort of device that you can squash. Insulation foam would be a good one, wouldn't it really? Something that you can use. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Right, as always, appreciate a thumbs up, and remember it's absolutely free to press that subscribe button. If you're going to press the subscribe button, then make sure you press the bell icon, because that means that you'll receive notifications every time a new video comes out. It's free to send swings into the channel. Why not do it, right? The links to my social media pages are in the description box below, and that's where basically loads of golfers are taking the opportunity to send their swings in. Pretty much every day I then annotate over some swings, and I basically get back to those golfers as quickly as I can, just giving you some tips as to what's best for you to work on. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. I'll catch up with you guys again soon.